Meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee. Mr. Parks won't be joining us today, nor Mr. Wiesar from our understanding. So I will be chairing this meeting today, joined by my colleagues, Mr. Smith and Mr. Rosendahl. What I'd like to do is have the following items be under consent. That would be items 6, 7, 8, and 9. On the regular agenda, Mr. Parks has asked that we continue item number 11 for the next meeting in closed session, that item being closed session. Also, on item number 12, would like to continue that item for a special meeting that they're looking at potentially for Wednesday, the 17th. I know we have a few speakers who are here. Either we can take your public comment today on that item, or when we have a specially scheduled meeting, we can also have you speak there. So I know that includes Angela Reddock, Ginger Williams, Dwayne Wilson, and John Heathcliff. So we're not going to hear the item today. But we can take your public comment if you would like, or you can speak at public comment when we schedule a special meeting that I think they're looking at Wednesday at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. We have our commerce and
on that meeting, so it may not be at 9 o'clock on Wednesday if we don't have that.
5 is when our committee meets.
Okay. So I know Mr. Parks is still looking at if there's a quorum or not for Wednesday morning. Okay. So that would mean we are approving 6, 7, 8, and 9. And continuing items 11 and 12. Potentially, we will be hearing an update on the budget. We're trying to determine for it to be an emergency discussion, some legal issues we have to abide by. So we will hold that for a moment till we get some clarification on that as well. So before we go into closed session, I thought we would take a couple items. First, our commissioner, and then if the speakers on item 12 would like to speak, we can also hear them speak today. So please, Ms. Contreras-Sweet.
Okay, and this is item number 5, which is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Maria Contreras-Sweet to the Board of Fire and Police Pension Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2013.
Madam Chair, thank you so much for allowing me to go before this august group of people. It's nice to see all of you again. I'm delighted to have been asked to serve on this commission. In particular, we all put our time in, and I feel that as Commissioner Rosendahl said, I think I already put mine in, but I felt that the experience that I had as the secretary over the Highway Patrol, over the Department of Banking, over the Department of Corporations, over the Alcohol Beverage Control, it's sort of like you had that experience, how do you put it to bear and have it continue to benefit our community? And so when the mayor called on me and asked me to consider this commission, I thought it was perfectly the right time and the right commission to serve on. So I look forward to taking so seriously. I think that those who stand in harm's way to protect us, that are out there on the front line, deserve to have a set of commissioners that are there to protect their future benefits, their income, and I think we owe them that duty and that trust. And so I would pledge to you, that I would bring all of my resources and my past experience to bear to make sure that we continue to make that possible for them.
Well, I want to thank you, and you have been a true public servant over the years in many different positions, and even in the private sector, your engagement and involvement in the city, and I think your expertise is going to be great to go on this board. And as you say, there's nothing more important to help those that have served us in their pension in the future to ensure that it is invested in. I think we're realizing that even this weekend when we saw our first responders, how incredible they are.
Right.
It is important to us as we look at investing these dollars in the economic downturn. And last night and this morning, hearing about all of the changes in Lehman Brothers going bankrupt and Merrill Lynch and all of that, real concern about ensuring our pension funds are appropriately being taken care of. So I know that will be something that you will look at as you go onto the board. But I just want to thank you because you really have been a true public servant and continue to say yes. So I want to thank you, and that you will come to us when there are issues, where appropriate, to talk about things that the city can be doing differently. And I know there's been some discussion, albeit controversial, as to whether or not to combine some of the staffs of the pension funds here, and whether or not how that going forward would interested in your perspective as you delve into these issues.
I want to say, when I ran for office, people would say, I'm overqualified. You did this and that and everything else. There's no such thing as overqualified. In fact, what you bring to the table is extraordinarily helpful to the city. I will say this about our mayor. The mayor has done an incredible job of picking people for commissionships and general managers. There'll be lots of legacies for him, but this is one legacy that I've seen 3 years of his action. The people go on boards and commissions. It's not payoff for this or that. It's people who have real talent and real opportunities to enhance and make the city a better place. Same thing with our general managers. And so, full disclosure, I've known you for 30 years. You've been on my show. It dates us a little bit, but people wouldn't know. And you've been a great contributor to our state and to our nation, and I dare say it's wonderful to have you come back to the city and play a leadership role with us, and we thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. One question I have for you really is how you view the pension system, which is a very well-funded, it's one of the best in the country probably, our police fire pension system, but in this very volatile marketplace, and Mr. Rosendahl just told me the marketplace is down 500 points today after some big roll downs earlier this year. This has been a very, very bad year for investments, and that's where a lot of our pension system is at. Mm-hmm. How do you view where we could go to be safe? What is our safe harbor? What's your general view of what we should be doing with our money in these very volatile times?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really appropriate question, and I really want to thank you for that question. First, allow me to introduce our Chief Investment Officer. I think that you've met Tom Lopez in the past, and clearly he has shown over and over and over how strong his acumen is, his breadth and depth of the area and the scope of work that's put before him. And so I'm delighted to have made his acquaintance, to have already begun to talk to the staff and understand what their views are, the challenges are. And obviously to my right is Ms. Laura Guglielmo, who is the Assistant General Manager, who has also spent a little bit of time with me already briefing me. Let me just say that I don't know that we've been through anything like what we're going through right now. As a banker personally, I think we are all very, very concerned. As a former regulator of banking, I remain hugely concerned. And so it's to a great extent one of the reasons that when we start new banks and as we monitor banks and regulate them, we're always concerned with the experience people bring to the table, because it's easy to make money in an upturn. And certainly when you're down in the tank, that's when, you bring everything that you have to bear. I think our duty is to make sure that we're being circumspect, that we're really scrubbing the investment managers, that we're reviewing our performance, that we always make sure that we have diversification in our portfolio. And if I could tell you that there are some perfect safe harbors, then we wouldn't be in this downturn, right? Yeah. So all serious, all kidding aside, I think it really is important for us to be well prepared and to just do the homework, to come in. And again, I talk about diversification.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd, Mr. Rosendahl,
Oh, sure.
move.
It'd be an honor to move it.
To accept this nomination, and congratulations. And
Thank you.
That will be unanimous. Do we know when you're scheduled for council?
On Wednesday.
This Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay.
Or Wednesday?
So you can't change your mind. Quick, we're moving.
This Wednesday.
All right. This Wednesday. So. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you
nice
very
to
much.
see you.
Thank you.
Next week.
Next one. A week, yes, or this coming Wednesday?
Next week? Okay.
Next week. Okay, next week. Okay. So
Before our treasurer leaves, I know she's going to leave. Could you just come up for one quick second and just make that comment that you made to me when I told you that you went down the tank 500 points, and your quick response was...
She was going to get the money moved. Leave her alone.
No, you have to hear this. This is a wonderful story.
We have no Lehman. We have no exposure to Merrill. The rating agencies have already talked to us today, and it told me that we also have to do our homework, and And I'll be giving a more definite report or detailed report next Monday.
We'll consider this public comment, so we're not
Okay.
illegal.
I just think hallelujah that we didn't do that.
Rosendahl moment.
Yeah, it's a moment.
Okay. Before we go into closed session, because we just have the speaker cards on item number 12, if you all would like to speak today, we will take that testimony. We have 4, so if you'd all like to come up to the chairs here to the table. Angela Reddock, Ginger Williams, Dwayne Wilson, and John Heathcliff. We'll give 2 minutes each to the... Thank you. And we will share your testimony with our colleagues who are not present today, but wanted to give you the opportunity to speak. So whoever would like to start.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to make some...
Just say your name for the record.
John
Nice.
Heathcliff, Heathcliff, and I'm with Public Counsel Law Center here in Los Angeles. We've had the opportunity to meet with several council members and look forward to meeting with more about the issue of the City of Los Angeles Marathon, and in particular the Official Charities Program. Let me just, if I could, for the record, just give you a quick overview of what the Official Charities Program is about. 23 years ago, there was no Official Charities Program. There was no City of Los Angeles Marathon. But Bill Burke went to each council member and said, we're starting the City of Los Angeles Marathon. Can we get your favorite charities? And he asked for one from everyone to try and get at least 15, but he was going for 26, one for every mile in the marathon. And when the number got almost double that, they decided that was enough and they would start the program. Today, there are nearly 50 charities that participate in the City of Los Angeles Marathon, many of the city's largest and most respected charities. There are over 2,500 participants from all of our organizations that participate in the City of Los Angeles Marathon. All of them register to pay to participate in the marathon, generating fees of well over $160,000. Many of them also are coming into the city and going to hotels and restaurants and other facilities in order to be here and to participate. Many are making their travel plans for the marathon or have made their travel plans for this year's marathon. Together, these 50 charities raise over $1.5 million for the most vulnerable people in our community. Physically and mentally disabled adults and children, people who are suffering from AIDS, people who are suffering with Parkinson's disease, providing services to abused and abandoned children, arts programs across the entire city of Los Angeles and across all of the communities that feed into Los Angeles. All we're asking for today, just if I could conclude with a couple of thoughts, are 2 things. One is that we make the Official Charities Program a permanent part of the City of Los Angeles' contract with the event promoters. And number 2, that we include the 5K, because the 5K generates over 2/3 of the fundraising and participation of the Official Charities Program. Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Good morning, council members. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. My name is Angela Reddock, and I serve in a number of capacities, including on the city's Transportation Commission. But today I'm here in my capacity as chair of the board of Ability First. Ability First is an 83-year-old organization formerly known as the Crippled Children's Society. It provides services to disabled individuals and their families. We own 24 centers throughout Southern California. 2 of those centers are here in Los Angeles, one in Woodland Hills, and the other is here right in downtown, where we provide work opportunities to individuals with disabilities. We have over 2,000 participants total in our programs, and we join with our friends from Public Counsel and other organizations in asking for the City Council support for official charities as a part of the LA Marathon. For our organization in particular, we have been a part of the marathon, official charities part of the marathon since its inception. Last year, we had over 800 participants in the 5K walk, and for us, that's important because what's happening in the disabled community is we're focused on inclusion activities, meaning activities which combine disabled individuals along with active individuals and bringing them together. And the marathon fits perfectly into that for us and our mission, and gives us an opportunity to raise critical money for our organization. As we all know, we're suffering from the budget cuts, and the disabled community is is a part of suffering from those budget cuts as well. And so the $250,000 we raised last year is very significant to our bottom line, and we look forward to growing that in future years. We have with us the president of our organization, Lori Gangimi, and we also have one of our participants, Jerry Formby, here. She has her Purple Ability First shirt on. And Jerry participated in the marathon last year and personally raised $2,800. And so, so we certainly want to give Jerry and others the opportunity to continue to participate. It's very important to them. And Jerry has a message that she'd like to share with us, and I'll conclude my remarks with her message, and thank you.
With me, it gives me the chance to walk across the finish line. Please keep the faith going.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it too, Jerry.
I'm Dwayne Wilson. I'm with the Wildwoods Foundation. We're also one of the 50 official charities. And we're here today because of Councilman Park's motion that's on your agenda. And I got to say that we first saw this on late Friday, so we haven't really, as a group, had a chance to figure out exactly how a day or date change would impact us. But let me say that you know, when I was a kid, my dad was a minister of music at a Baptist church. So believe me, I understand the importance of getting to your place of worship on a Sunday, and sometimes more than that, if you're a preacher's kid. But we are concerned. We are concerned about the idea of a day change. I mean, we know that there are thousands of people that come from not only all across the country, but from distant parts of the world to come and participate on that day. And we've had some of our fellow charities express concern to us that shifting to a Monday, even a holiday Monday, would present problems. There's certainly problems with the expo and registration that would be presented. And I also know that a lot of our participants that we recruit primarily for the bike tour, it's not a universal holiday, this idea of President's Day, which is the date that we hear has been kicked around. So therein we would suffer because we wouldn't be able to recruit as many people to participate. And I have a feeling, you know, if it's us, it's going to be others as well. And it's going to be a ripple effect that, since this is budget and finance, I can only imagine that the number of dollars that flow into this city because of these out-of-town participants, if it shifted to a tough travel day, it would probably decline. But we're not sure. We don't want to take a hardline position on this. We're just concerned, and we just want to voice that concern. And we hope that you consider this.
Thank you very much. Ginger.
Hi, my name is Ginger Williams. I'm the program director at the National AIDS Marathon Training Program. And I was asked to speak to you today because I work also with the Chicago Marathon, and they have a huge charity program that I think in terms of the working with the community, they're very, very strong in working with each section of their communities. I printed out, they have one of their things on their website they call 29 neighborhoods. So each section of the Chicago where the race runs through, each neighborhood is equally involved in the actual running of the marathon as a community. And I think this one way for our official charity program, or our organization here working with the AIDS Marathon would like to see a way to work with each one of the communities and certainly with the churches and the concerns that they would have to be able to reach out and include them as part of the race itself is something that they do largely in Chicago. And the Chicago Marathon is the largest marathon in this country, 40,000 participants, and brings a great deal of revenue, obviously, to the city of Chicago. And I spoke with the race director back in 2003, and one of the things that he did when he took over the race after having been canceled the year before he took over was he directed their race through community-based organizations and reaching out to each one of the communities as opposed to solely corporate sponsors. So, and the charities have definitely greatly benefited from that. That's all. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Again, like, we're not.
yeah, well, I don't appreciate that point. I think we should have this, it's on the agenda, and we're just going to continue it to another meeting, because I'd like to interact with this, the
Fine.
people who have
I
been
just wanted
involved.
you to know that we weren't going to act on it.
No, but I want to say the following. One, I understand that our CLA has negotiated it into the contract, so the charities will be an integral part of it, and that's the good news that you all need to know, and that will go public with them when they go to the second meeting.
Thank you.
Secondly, to me, a Saturday might make sense rather than a Sunday. I know in the African-American community, Sunday is church day, and it's a big church day, so maybe a Saturday works, might not be a drive time, but I know that'll be further discussed when we continue this item to the next meeting. But I thought the charities need to know that I personally would not have voted for this unless the charities were an integral part of it, because they have made it a success, and I've met with Public Counsel and half a dozen other charities the other day, and it was so compelling. It's a no-brainer for any of us to take nothing but a positive position for what you've all contributed. Thank you, Madam.
No, and I wholeheartedly agree. So you all were early on. I think you sent a letter a couple months ago, making
Like, is
sure
there
we
an
knew your
issue?
position. So I think, as Mr. Rosendahl said, that was really a no-brainer, that would be part of the discussion going forward. So I think you can probably rest assured that is going to be part of any kind of contract that goes forward. But we did want to give you an opportunity today so you won't have to come back. Number one, to make your voices heard, but also, as Mr. Rosendahl said, to make sure you knew that was a commitment from all of us to have the charities as part of it. So thank you for your public comment. We will let you know when the next meeting, special meeting may be.
Thank you very
Sorry,
much.
and we just found out that it was going to continue when we got here, so.
And thanks to your staff members who've been quite indulgent.
I didn't know. Should have been allowed.
Okay.
Proceed.
We got plenty of things to do.
To be able to consider it. Okay. We're going to go on that. No. That's why I wanted to take the public comment, because I didn't want to
I
miss
would
it.
have done the item and then continued the action. Could have done what I just did.
But no, we had the item before, so just the item was going to be continued. So.
Mr. City Attorney? If you could explain to us, to the public here, we have heard that there is a budget deal. I don't know if it has been voted on, but we will hear that. We do have the opportunity to hear the item as an emergency item, and like to explain, Dion, if you could, as to what we need to technically do to consider this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll recite the facts as presented to me by the maker of the verbal motion for the committee's consideration of the adequacy of the findings. Since the posting of today's agenda, the state legislature has reached a tentative agreement on a state budget pending final approvals in both houses. Immediate action is required for this committee to be briefed on the budget's impact on city programs so that the committee could determine whether to recommend to the full council to take an urgent legislative position. The committee unanimously must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion. And it's unanimously because there's less than two-thirds present, but there's still a quorum.
Okay. So colleagues, I think unanimously, unless I otherwise willing to, if we want to hear this item today and be able to have interaction on that item. So that will be the order unanimously from both Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Smith, and myself.
Okay. Then it's before you, if you unanimously.
Thank you. If we could have the mayor's office and the CLA.
Yeah, and especially want
J.O.
to thank Karen Bass and her leadership on this one.
I don't know if the CAO wants to come up at all. All yours.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. I'm Donna Estacio from the mayor's office. And as you mentioned, Councilwoman, there has been a tentative deal reached on the budget in Sacramento. The deal has not been voted on yet. Both the Senate and Assembly are going to be convening at 4 p.m., and it's expected that they'll caucus immediately upon the beginning of session, get the deal approved in both houses, and then vote on it tonight or tomorrow morning at the latest. All signals point to them sending the agreement to the budget immediately, to the governor immediately, so that he can line item veto what he may and sign off on it. In the budget agreement, as we understand it, it's in flux, and it's been a moving target today, but as of now, there is no borrowing from Prop 1A or 42, so the city is kept whole in that regard. There is still an RDA, a redevelopment take in the proposal. It is a one-year, $350 million take, so it's not a loan.
It's a one-year take, and from the cities, how much of that 300 plus million is from the city?
Our estimates, John Wickham with CLA, it's around $10 to $12 million as the CRA reports.
Right, and so that $350 million that they would take from RDAs would go to local school districts and free up general fund obligation in that regard. They close a significant part of the gap by accelerating tax revenues. So they're looking at collecting, for example, limited liability corporation fees for next year. They're looking at collecting them this year and accounting them.
Could you bring the microphone? I'm having a hard time hearing.
And accounting for them in this fiscal year. They are also looking at a tax amnesty program that should, together with the suspension of net operating loss deductions, they're looking at about $2.7 billion in savings there. So that's how they're closing up.
And the tax amnesty is on their income tax, or what's
I think
their?
it's corporate and personal.
Corporate and personal tax.
Mm-hmm.
For the CLA and CA, I'd like to add.
Again, they will be taking the vote. We expect this afternoon. The sessions begin at 4 o'clock. There may be changes, and we'll be tracking those as they move along. Our expectation is that they're trying to finish this up and move on. There were some additional. We're hearing that there's. What's that? We're hearing that there may be some of the street money made available through Prop 1B, $187 million for cities. Our street services department would want to take a look at that and see if there's anything that they would want to access to accelerate any of the street work that's going on. There is a concern that there could be a special election called. There are several items that have been put forward as, I'm not going to approve this budget deal unless I get a water bond, the securitization of the lottery, and the budget reform measures. And the question is, will they sync up their special election with our city election in March? And so we're watching that closely. There could be some benefits in terms of cost savings, but in terms of focus, it's a big election for the city. We've got all of our citywide offices as well as half of the city council running. And so there are concerns about election equipment and when that would be available. That becomes very problematic if they don't sync up with us. So the city clerk is monitoring this. We're monitoring this as well. It's one of the key issues that we're watching in this whole discussion. With regard to the CRA money, they are not touching the low mod money, as we had heard that there were talks about doing that. This is from the 80%, and it is a one-time take, as the mayor's office indicated. There are some carrots and sticks in there, so that try to make it a little bit easier for redevelopment agencies to make that payment to the state. But if they don't have that money, then there are some tough things in there that require agencies to cut back their administrative costs and other things in order to make the payment to the state. So there will need to be some heavy lifting over at the agency, the Community Redevelopment Agency, to determine what the impact is on their budget and when those impacts will hit them. So.
I'm Maria Gutierrez with the CAO. Just as a final note, I think it's important to note that a portion of this plan on the table is actually an acceleration of revenues. So to that extent, we need to keep our eyes on this budget, because whatever is delayed this year is going to affect the following year. So the $15.2 billion budget gap is really being deferred partially. So it's something that we're going to have to keep tabs on throughout the year.
Is it similar to some of the proposals that came forward here, which was to wait to make a payment when we were looking at our pension, correct? Right? Very similar to that. We
revenues.
declined to use that as an option available to us.
Correct.
Yeah.
And have there been any instances of or inclination from the governor's office as to whether or not he is inclined to support this?
He hasn't really said either way. What his spokesman did say was that he was concerned that there weren't enough budget reforms in this proposal.
I saw an assembly member yesterday who indicated part of the proposal was also closing tax loopholes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you reiterate on that a little bit, or?
Because there actually is no text in front of anybody.
Right, no, I know.
We really don't know what those tax loopholes are that
But
will
have
be
you heard
closed.
the same thing, that?
Yeah, that has been in various press reports and from other sources that we've heard.
Okay.
The point that the CAO made is very important. Next year, we'll be in the same fight for Prop 1A and Prop 42 funding. There are no there don't appear to be any structural resolutions to these problems. And I had another thought that just escaped my mind on that point. If I come back to it, I'll throw
How
it
about Measure R?
So, what was that?
Sign it?
The
governor hadn't signed it.
You know, one of the analyses I heard was that a budget takes 2/3 votes to pass, and it also takes 2/3 vote to override the governor. So, you know, the math is right there where if the governor really doesn't like it and the legislature is determined to pass a budget, they probably have the votes to do it.
Because I want Measure R on the ballot. We got to get past that.
I think that, the governor's indicated that unless there is a budget, he won't sign any of the bills that are before him, although there has been a request for that to have the same acceptance as the light rail, or exception as the high-speed rail did in the state, which he did sign. Our hope is that we get both today, that he signs both the budget and the Measure R to go on the ballot. And as we know, the Measure R actually is on the ballot, and the question is whether it's going to be legal or not, depending upon if the governor signs the legislation. But they did it in such a way that it is on the ballot, and the people will vote on it.
Yes.
Depending upon what the governor does. From a city attorney's perspective, where did Dion, there you are. Can we schedule this and move this item as a special item to the council tomorrow?
I guess you could do two things. You could make a recommendation to council, and then we'd have to make new findings tomorrow. That's
Okay.
an urgent matter tomorrow,
Which we could introduce then just a Rule 23?
It would be introduced as a Rule 23 tomorrow with new findings.
Okay. So we would just ask, if I would ask the CLA to draft a Rule 23 for us to go forward tomorrow to get the latest. We'll know more tomorrow, to quickly
if it's
understand the
needed.
implications. Okay. Any other questions, colleagues?
No.
Cross our fingers, say our
Just
prayers.
Great news, and
Yeah.
Karen Bass, I know, provide great leadership on this.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you, City Attorney, for working with us on being able to hear this. We're going to go into closed session now in the back, and we will reconvene here to hear items 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and 13.
Item number 3 was a closed session item being discussed in open session to amend the city attorney report to include an alternate funding source for the item.
Yes, I think it's authorized payment of up to $96,000 from the wastewater system commercial paper A construction fund number 70W, account number EAX5, titled Avenue 45 Arroyo Drive, RLF sewer, instead of the liability claims account, and also require that the property be recorded as an asset of the sewer construction and maintenance fund, and further require that if it is declared as surplus in the future, any sale would occur at fair market value.
Yes.
In agreement, colleagues? Okay. Thank you. That'll be the order.
Okay. Next is item number 10, which is a Community Development Department and CAO reports relative to various actions concerning the continued operations of the Harbor City Day Laborer Program by the Instituto de Educación Popular del Sur de California and its relocation to establishment at a new site. City staff are here to answer any questions you may have.
Beryl Taylor from the CEO's office. Did you have a particular question, or do you want me to do a summary?
I think there were, your recommendation, there's a motion that is before us, and there's a difference of opinion, I think, on where the money would come from and the return. And I know Mr. Parks was concerned about that the $178,000 unexpended funds moved from Chesterfield Square and Canoga Park sites be returned to their original sources. Is that the case?
Which is CDBG. The source of funding is CDBG, which is really the same as for the harbor site. It's part of the day laborer program.
Right. But the CAO is not recommending approval of CDD's recommendation to reprogram prior year unexpended CDBG.
Yeah. Not at this time, because there are two issues. The CDD transmittal indicated that if they were to reprogram these funds at this time, it might result in their reduced ability of them to provide their the revenue reimbursement, related cost reimbursement. So that would be an impact on the current year revenue. That's the first reason. The second reason would be that we're still exploring an additional site for the day labor program, so those funds might be needed for that. So we expect to come back in 60 days. We actually right now dealing with CDD and Rec and Parks as to whether there would be a new site and what funding would be required. So we can, address this issue when we come back. At this point, we found some additional savings in a special fund, Fund 551. The fiscal impact is slightly misleading because it's really not general fund savings. It's from the special fund, Fund 551, which is a fund that is used by CDD as a pass-through for funding provided in GCP, for example. This particular $56,000 is from the Learn and Earn program that was funded in the GCP in prior years.
Which program?
Learn and Earn is one of the summer employment programs. So I'm sorry, that was a confusion. We indicated it was general fund, but it's a special fund, but the original source of funding for...
The original source was general fund.
Was general fund in the GCP.
Right. So it's just a special program, but it still is general fund money. How much is left in the Learn and Earn?
They identified $56,000, which would just carry the program for 8 months temporarily, while we still look for a permanent site, and we're not sure what the cost of that would be to operate the additional site.
Does the CAO know how much is in that Learn and Earn?
At this point, I believe that's the amount.
That's the amount that CDD.
$56,000, yeah.
Yes, total savings from prior year contracts.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we hadn't seen that in any of the financial status reports.
It's unanticipated, actually, within.
Yes, it's just that the money goes into that special fund where they program it at the end of the year.
Right, still general fund money.
Yes.
For the $56,000. So this is, you report back in 60 days, you're asking us to allocate the $56,000 from the Learn and Earn program special fund, coming back with the actual location and cost, and determine other potential sources of funding.
That's correct.
Is that the action?
Yes.
I have a question. The current site, is it operational right now?
I have CDD, Manny from CDD address.
It's currently not operational right now. We don't have any contracted staff out there.
Okay. Previously, was it close to a collection point for day laborers, such as the Home Depot or something like that?
No, there's not a Home Depot nearby. It's been a traditional site to pick up day laborers there for over 18 years.
How many people there?
Working or being picked up?
To be picked up. I mean, before?
There was quite a bit of activity.
A lot of
at the site.
activity?
Yeah.
So in the new site, will it be any kind of disruption, or will they go over there to that new site?
It is hoped that when we identify a new site in the park, in the same park,
park.
that we can pay some contractors
Move
to
that.
try and bring the guys over
I
there.
found sometimes when you had a collection point, like a Home Depot, for instance, they tried to move it, the laborers didn't go there. They just kept where they were used to getting picked up because it was convenient and the community knew where to go get them.
Sure, yeah. We're hoping to keep it in the same park area, and so to avoid that kind of issue.
And then the current site that was used, is it going to be in any way blocked off so that they can't still gather there?
There was construction that was taking place, it is taking place currently, right directly in front of that old site. So while the construction is going on, you can't get access there. And after the construction is done, I believe they're going to reroute some of the street area frontage. So I don't think they'd be able to pull in there and utilize that site even if anyone wanted to.
That's what I don't want to do, is build a site that no one goes
Exactly. That's our concern as well.
to. Okay.
Mr. Rosenthal? No? Okay. So that'll be the order.
Oh.
As I described it, the 56,000 from Learn and Earn, 60-day report back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item?
That was, last is item number 13, which was continued from August 11th, which is the Department of Cultural Affairs and CAO report relative to acceptance of a donation from the Durfee Foundation in the amount of $150,000 for the period of April 2008 through April 2010 to support the department's cultural tourism initiative / international cultural exchange program. Staff are here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I know you sent a clarifying email, because I'd ask you to do that on the process by which we got to this point, as far as on the 2-to-1. If you could, there were some issues raised as far as whether this committee had approved it before on a 2-to-1 match, where the funding that you didn't apply for it. I think the CIO had indicated that the process is you get approval by the council before we apply for funding.
Correct.
If you could just describe briefly the process in getting this grant.
Thank you. Basically, this is not really a grant, it's a donation from the Durfee Foundation. I made a presentation soon after I got to Los Angeles to the LA funders for the arts organization, and one of the programs that I described was this International Cultural Exchange Program, and Claire Peeps, who's the executive director of Durfee, came up to me afterwards and said, would you like to partner with us on this? So, of course, I was thrilled, and a couple of weeks later, I got a letter from her saying that the board had approved it. After that, I instructed our grants writer, Andrew Casson, to contact the CAO's office to see what we needed to do. And because we didn't apply for it, there wasn't a competitive kind of process, we were told that it was considered a donation, and so we didn't do anything further. As you will remember, during the budget process earlier this year, we submitted this as part of the request that we had, and working with the CAO, they were able to recommend sources of matching funds, of which $207,000 is slated to come from CIEP funds, which is a pot of money, capital improvement money that that goes to the Department of Cultural Affairs, and then the $93,000 balance from the general fund, and that was approved by the Budget and Finance Committee, and it's written in the budget book.
So item number 5 that was included in the CAO's report would be deleted because, in fact, it was included in the budget.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry. And I think the other recommendation by the CLA, not only in addition to deleting the recommendation, would it be amend the CAO recommendation number 4 to state the following: instruct the Department of Cultural Affairs to prepare and present to Council by February 15, 2009, prior to its submission to the Durfee Foundation, a copy of its Foundation Grant Interim Progress Report, which should include a brief narrative on project management, summary of application and review procedures, a list of artist grantees, and proposed destination and grants.
That would be fine. I will say that because we received this award letter in April, and here we are in mid-September, and we haven't gotten approval to create the program, I think that it would be in the city's best interest for us to talk to the Durfee Foundation and see if the dates of the award can be changed so that we can maximize the use of these funds if you all accept the donation. And so I just wanted to mention that we'll contact Durfee if this moves forward to see if we can push back the start date of the program and therefore the end date so that we can maximize the benefit of the dollars.
So if we approve this in the Budget Committee, what's before us is the actual contract. Is that
My understanding, and I apologize, but I'm fairly new, as you know, my understanding is that for a donation to be accepted, the council has to agree that that's in the best interest of the city, and that is the process that we're in front of you to advocate for. We did do all of the budgeting through the regular budget process, but now this is to actually accept the donation, which in turn allows me as the general manager to execute the program.
Thank you. Mr.
I just
Smith?
want to know what took so long. Was that the bureaucracy play or just the process or what?
To be honest with you, I thought that since we went through the budget process,
Thought it was done.
I thought it was a done deal, and I was actually quite surprised when this committee, at its last meeting, decided to continue the matter because the committee didn't feel that you had the sufficient information to be able to weigh in on it. So, you know, we got the letter in April, and it's mid-September, and we still haven't, been able to answer one of the most, I think, community-minded foundations, which there aren't that many foundations in Los Angeles.
You've done an informal phone call. I mean, are they?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in
they're
informal, but
flexible and they're-
I'm not, I'm not privy to.
Of course.
So it is, kind of a bureaucratic.
My hope in the future, because I like this foundation, I obviously want to
They're
get more
great.
donations and grants out of these folks. Whatever we need to do to keep that energy
yeah.
going, we need to.
And I will say that there's not very many foundations that actually give to municipalities, and so it's a pretty wonderful thing that they came up to us out of the clear blue sky to say, can we partner with you? So
I'm sure your presentation helped when they.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
It says in the report that there were substantial commitments made on behalf of the city to launch the program. Was that prior to or after the budget deliberations?
I will say that when we received the award letter, it said a 2-to-1 match, and then we brought that in as part of our entire budget process. You remember that the budget process starts in December, and so we got the award letter in April, and so...
April
of 08. So we included the request to have the match as part of our budget submission. So it was very, I thought that was the way that you had to do it. And so
That's fine. So the CAOs is in the budget book?
Well,
correct.
Saul Rumo for the Department of Cultural Affairs. The commitment that we referenced there is the actual the actual financial match by the city, which is codified in the budget. When the award was offered by the Durfee and we had to come up with a match obligation, we were in the budgetary process trying to identify the source for that particular match. After the council approved the budget and we received the match, then we were able to go back to the Durfee Foundation to express that the city has made a commitment. Up to that point, we weren't certain that we would be able to secure the match. Then it was a separate process to technically come back, which is what brought us again before you, to receive the money. And in the course of...
He just wanted to make sure it was codified in the budget.
I want to make sure I voted on it in committee because, quite frankly, I don't remember it. And I would have some real personal issues with this kind of spending right now. But as long as that's already been done, and I voted once on it, I'm not going to make a fool of myself. So I'm going to vote for it.
And I think that, as I expressed to the general manager, the concern is that there have been other general managers who have made commitments
Yes.
of the city prior to us, and then we're in a difficult spot
Sure.
because we're being given a grant, we didn't apply for it, and how do you say no? And so I know in this instance, it was not an application procedure as you described to
Right.
me. It was really you were talking about what some of your priorities
Yeah.
were, and they said, we'd like to help. So
Exactly, and I will say that we were very clear with Durfee all the way through the budget process that it wasn't a done deal, and I thought that once it is in the budget book, that made it a done deal, and I was actually kind of surprised when the item was continued. So if we gave them, the wrong impression, it was not intentional, I thought it was a done deal.
Let's vote before I change my mind.
yes. Okay, so with that, we will approve the recommendations as amended by those that I stated in the beginning of the item.
The only thing I want to make is when we go through the budget process this year, highlight anything where somebody wants to give us a grant and we have to match 2-to-1 in a specific sense, so we get that appreciation during that process.
Thank you.
Will do, thank you.
Do you have one public comment card? Not on this item, just on general public comment, because that was our last item, correct?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Mr. Noel Weiss?
Let's stop doing here.
Thank you, Bill. Spelled my name wrong. No, my name is spelled wrong. That's it.
Thank you. Madam Chairwoman, the reason why that I'm here today, actually, let me just give this to the settlement. There are two SB 1818 cases that are pending where we challenge the legality of the council's action in passing the implementation ordinance, primarily on the basis of the lack of environmental review. There were two settlements that we were in discussions with the city attorney. We had presented that in June and July. The city attorney apparently wrote it up. Supposedly it was supposed to come before council in August. It got referred to this committee and to Plum. It's going to be before Plum tomorrow, but I thought I would take an advantage. I don't know if Mr. Parks is going to schedule it here, whether he's going to waive it, what he's going to do. My understanding was that it was going to come before this committee at least today, but it didn't, so notwithstanding. I wanted to give you at least the settlement proposals because I think what we're really talking about is an opportunity to revisit the issue, which is I'm just basically looking for suspension of the statute. Why? Because the need for environmental review, I think, will bring out a lot of the alternative economic and political interests that are kind of at cross purposes here. And in addition, I think what we're talking about is, I think, an opportunity if you're talking about the mixed income ordinance and also now TOPA's in the housing element. If you want to we're not getting affordable housing. We have policies that are taking away from affordable housing. You're destroying more than you're creating. So at this point, to try to basically have a timeout and work with the powers that be on all sides to get a viable, workable alternative that basically gets to where we want to go on all sides, I think is more reasonable than to basically sit and let it go and then have, again, government by litigation. So the important thing to me is to basically, because we have candidates for re-election, Mr. Rosendahl, we got a candidate for controller, Ms. Gruhl, I just want to basically have right now, here and now, a kind of a marker, because hope springs eternal on this stuff, and, if you don't act, you don't act, obviously, but at least there's the opportunity, and that's my intent in trying to just ask that you think and consider about it. Okay? Thank you very much.
That concludes our meeting. Thank you. 2:30, just so you know.
Woo-ha. I move we elect Wendy Grohl chairman of the committee.